And you're at the Shlicketty DooCast. If you're curious, thedoocast.com. We'll be working on that. Don't worry. So don't go there just yet. Just bookmark it, save it for later, because we'll be fixing that. But hey, you tune back in. I don't know where you came from, who you are, but you tune back into us, and we thank you. We thank you. And that's the idea. Well, we're going to talk about nothing. I'm Aaron Forsyth, and this is my partner in crime, Mr. Mike Anderson.
There I am. I'm here.
The guy in the box, the box guy.
I'm here.
He's like veal down there. We got him. We got him squished in the box.
That's right. Keep me in there, like, safe from sunlight and oxygen. It's good.
Yeah.
I get scared easy.
Yeah. So we're going with take two here. Take two on this episode. We lost power halfway through, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. You have that. I mean, things happen. Whatever.
I love your tone of voice of the, yeah, you'll have that.
Yeah. You know, I mean, what can you do?
The sound of defeat in your voice, like, you can't fake that. That's just true.
You can't. I would say it's like running out of gas, but running out of gas means you didn't trying very hard.
God.
This is more like, you got a flat tire. Yeah, what can you do?
Dude, can I tell you one time? Fucking Pauly Shore called into fucking Holmberg's show out there in Phoenix. And Holmberg's talking to Pauly Shore, and Pauly Shore's trying to promote some movie that he directed that he was really proud of and shit. And right in the middle of him fucking describing what the plot of the movie's about, Holmberg goes, "Does it have a caveman in it?" And Pauly, you can literally hear Pauly on the radio deflate, just in like, like, and Holmberg played it like over and over again of just Pauly deflating. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'd like to meet Pauly someday. He seems all right. I'm fine. There's I don't want to bag on anybody, but there's a local club that I know of, and the owners, they said he wasn't very friendly during his stay here. He was kind of high maintenance.
That's kind of the thing, is that I watch a lot of stuff. I see people on videos and talking and stuff like that. And sometimes you see people where it's like they're really like overinflating their own importance in things. Now, don't get me wrong.
He's pretty important.
Pauly Shore definitely had a fucking mark of importance in both I guess, like more than just both, but in the comedy world, in like that sort of MTV world, and then in movie world.
Yes, he's part of the zeitgeist. He's definitely earned his peg in history.
Yeah, and then also, I mean, just on a ground level, just because who he was and what he grew up with, his whole growing up with like Richard Pryor being around and Sam Kinison, and like all these comedians and stuff that went through the Comedy Store.
Oh gosh, yeah, he was there.
Yeah, he was right at the epicenter of it for like his whole time growing up. Like he was saying when he was like 9 and 10, like Richard Pryor was like hanging out and stuff.
Yeah.
And like Richard Pryor like grew up in a whorehouse. So, Richard Pryor was probably a great dude to sort of like hang out with when you were a kid, and he would sort of probably
steered him along.
Probably protect you from shit and stuff,
Oh yeah.
Like he knew what it was like.
Probably does he have a book out? He'd be one to have a book. He did.
Speaking of the people that fucking like were back in the thick of it and put a book out, Rob Lowe, right?
Oh well, his stories are incredible. You should listen to his podcast. It's incredible. He tells, oh my god, yeah, he's got stories for days.
Stories for days, man. Like amazing, like
a royalty.
Yeah, like fucking royalty, man. Him and his brother, and they're hanging out with the Estevezes and the fucking.
Just the right place at the right time situation, just the way his life evolved.
Yeah,
he
the
just
Penns,
says it so casually.
all three of
his
the Penn brothers.
Years.
Yeah. I mean, man.
Yeah.
Man.
I know.
To be like, wealthy, good looking, slaying poon in the fucking like early 80s and shit, man.
In California?
Dude, they're hanging out with like Sean Penn, Chris Penn. Who was the other brother that did music? The Michael Penn?
Right. Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, you're right.
Well, I think Michael Penn was like way younger. Maybe he wasn't quite hanging out with.
Yeah, he might have been.
Was there a Zach Penn?
I don't know, but either way, I'm sure they were hammering all the girls. They were having a great time.
Yeah, they would
I
definitely.
mean, their teen years must have been incredible.
I know.
Just even maybe that high school. Imagine the high school yearbook.
Right?
You know?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the sort of stuff you and I, like growing up in a place like Erie, which at the time was like 25 years behind anything that was going on.
Yeah.
And so when cable TV came around, it was like the direct injection right into our veins of like what the hell was happening in the real world.
Sure.
And it definitely made you look around in Erie and be like, oh boy, we're like 20 years behind. Like this place
Well,
is...
we weren't 20, but I always felt like we were a good 4. Everything was like 4 years delayed. Like, so when you
Maybe.
catch wind of something huge, it would take about 3 summers, maybe 4 Christmases to get here. And I could tell in pop culture land. Like here, prime example. Here,
All
I'll
right.
tell you a little backstory.
All
Take
right.
this one.
All right.
All right. Well, my dad, back in the late 70s, and he was a clothes buyer for the store Orbox in New York City, but then he worked for Carlisle's around here, and he would buy clothes. He was a buyer. And clothing stores sent their buyers to Seoul, Korea, or they'd send them to Tokyo, or they'd send them to Paris to come back with a clothing line to sell exclusively at that store. So when he worked for Carlisle's in 81, 82, 83, you know, those years, I remember him going like once a year, he'd go like what he called, I got to go to the Orient. And he would go to like Korea and places like that. And he'd come back with clothing lines that Carlisle's could sell, which Carlisle's was the store at the mall, clothing store, men's and women's.
Right. Our mall, the Mill Creek Mall.
Right.
Which
But it
was
mall shit.
But it was an early on mall. It was like, what, 71, 72?
Sure.
It was probably one of the first handful of malls.
Yeah. Put a timestamp on it. He was the one who brought the line of, remember Britannica jeans?
Britannica or Britannia?
I don't remember. It had the British flag looking thing.
Yeah, I remember those.
Okay. It was, now everyone in those days, the rednecks had the Wranglers and the Lees, you know, and then there was like the Sassons were kind of the high fashion. But the Britannica, he brought the line of Britannica here, and everyone stood in line, and you know, and it was a big success, and everyone was like, "Oh, he brought Britannica," you know, and he was saying, "Oh, well, a couple years late to this, Erie's just behind," you know. That's a prime example, right?
Yeah.
there. Clothes and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah,
I remember
exactly. Exactly.
We had an Atari 2600 that he brought from the Orient a year and a half, well, about a year.
Yeah.
Before anyone had it around here. We were the first ones to have Atari 2600.
Yeah, and similarly, when we were little kids, me and my brother, my dad worked for the phone company, General Telephone, GTE, back in the day. And he was a training instructor, so he was always gone Monday through Friday doing training and stuff, and he'd come back. I don't know. He'd bring us like toys and shit. He brought us Star Wars action figures before we had even heard of Star Wars.
So the toys were out before Star Wars itself was out. So they're
Well, I guess back in the day they didn't open movies wide the way that they started to in the 80s. So back then they would tour the movie around. So it would be regional.
Oh, right.
So
it could have been like, LA, New York, or something like that.
Yeah, or
Just
even
like a
Pittsburgh.
soft open.
Yeah, or even Pittsburgh. You know what I mean? So if he came through like the Pittsburgh airport or something like that, or I don't know what it was, but yeah, I remember him coming home with Star Wars figures, and me and my brother were like, "What are these?" You know, and because oftentimes he would come home with stuff like, you remember Micronauts?
Oh, I remember Micronaut. I didn't have any, but I knew what you're talking about. Yeah, sure.
He came home one time with Micronauts.
Sure.
And me and Eric are like, Eric's my brother. And we were like, what are these? And he's like, I don't know, I thought they looked cool.
Wow.
And we were like, they do look cool. You know, that was back when the Micronauts were like all like a see-through color. Then it had like white feet and hands and shit like that.
That was way before
Like a metallic
any
head.
Transformers or, you know.
Yeah.
Micronauts,
Yeah.
they were smaller.
Yeah. They were just like little figure guys or something like that, like this, like that. I don't know, I forget. Yeah.
Yeah, they're.
I don't have anything
like
from childhood.
Robotic Herculoids.
Herculoids. Yeah. It was a Hanna-Barbera thing, wasn't
I
it?
know.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
So Erie was behind. Erie was 4 years behind.
Erie was definitely behind like
situation after
everything
situation
back in the day growing up.
Yeah, it's funny how like we were listening. Like I discovered Motley Crue "Shout at the Devil" was like I found it in 1987 when really it had already been out for 5 years. You know what I mean? It's like by the time the record store and the everyone, all the kids at the mall were like, "You gotta buy this one."
No,
You know?
it wasn't bad. It wasn't that bad, but it was definitely like there were things like I remember the first time I ever saw or heard about Metallica was on MTV,
Sure.
Headbangers Ball, and they showed a clip of them playing the Day on the Green Festival in Oakland in like 85 or something like that.
85.
And because they were doing Ride the Lightning.
Yeah.
And they were playing a bit of the song Ride the Lightning. And it was like na 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 na.
That was about the time they came to Erie, probably.
No, that was 86. That was on the Master of Puppets tour when they were opening for Ozzy.
Yeah, for the Ultimate Sin Ozzy tour.
Yeah.
But, so that's a year later.
That's a year later. Yeah. Yeah, this was like Oakland Day on the Green Festival. You know, this was like the footage you always see of like Cliff Burton wearing the denim jacket and he's doing the bass solo
the
for
head
Anesthesia
thrash
pulling
with his
teeth.
foot on the monitor outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's the Day on the Green. So I first saw the clip of them. It was like on Headbangers Ball, and they were doing Ride the Lightning, which is like now it's time to die. You know, just like thrashing out and shit. And I was like in like 85.
85, yeah.
And I was like, that's the shit. Whereas like everybody else was like in, I don't know.
Would have put, so 85 would have put me at like 9th grade.
Because don't forget, like back in like 83, shit like Quiet Riot.
Yeah, that was the older
Come On, Feel
stuff.
the Noise, Mental Health, Dio with Rainbow in the Dark. That was like 82, 83 stuff.
The older metal was kind of there. And things hadn't got quite as theatrically better. You know, everything was still kind of looked like a weird talent show and everything was a little goofy. But it was there.
Yeah, it was all very like late 70s sort of thing. Like even Dawkins. Like Dawkins started out as like a late 70s sort of band. Like that first album, like Breaking the Chains, like everything was from like 79 or 80.
But it's goofy. It was goofy. But we loved it. It was the
Well, because it was new and different, you know. And honestly, I love the new wave stuff. I still love like Duran Duran, Human League, ABC, Adam and the Ants, like all that sort of shit. I dig that shit.
Yeah, that was just in the zeitgeist. That was just things you'd hear. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And plus,
MTV. It was MTV.
And when we're in 8th and 9th grade, that's when you're kind of finding your tribe, right? So the tribes weren't quite as diverse as they are now. Tribes were kind of like, oh, do you have a tie-dye and listen to Grateful Dead? Or do you like the new wave and have your hair spiky like a British weirdo? Or do you like metal? You know, and it was like, or, you know, rap wasn't even a thing. Rap had nothing. It wasn't even.
No, rap was. I mean, rap and metal came up at the same time.
Yeah, but in our suburban world, it wasn't really a thing other than the occasional Beastie Boys thing.
But through MTV. Through MTV, it was all right there. But yeah, in real life,
it was
here in Erie,
Fat Boys.
Like, I remember, like, in junior high, calling up the radio station and requesting Ozzy songs. And I remember the fucking DJ getting mad at me, being like, we will never play Ozzy on this station. I think it was Rocket 101.
Huh. I wouldn't, yeah.
You know? And it was like, you don't even.
I used to call, I forget what I would call it. Like, I remember calling him once. I wanted to hear that. What's that? When the bullet hits the bone song.
Golden Earring.
The Twilight song. Golden Earring. I remember calling that on repeat because I loved it as a kid for some reason.
That was a great song.
Right. I was like, play that bullet to the bone song.
Yeah. I mean, but that's legit. I used to call him up and be like, you know, play Paranoid by Ozzy from Speak of the Devil.
Yeah, or you'd ask
the dude
for a
would be like,
song
no,
that
there's no
never
way.
play. You'd be like, do you play Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath?
Well, you know, honestly, dude, so with Sabbath, I actually was never really into Sabbath until like you were like 19. You had graduated high school. I was still in high school.
Yeah, I backtracked on the Sabbath.
Yeah, you were dating some girl and you were like I remember you were telling me you were home during the day. She was at work, and so you had started like fingering through the record collection. She had like Black Sabbath, and so you put it on, and you were like just jamming and learning Black Sabbath riffs.
Yeah, it was Masters of Reality, and the Masters of Reality was the. I mean, my brother had it. I had it. It was around. We
Right.
listened to
It was
It
always
kinda
around,
spooky and weird,
but it
and
was
slow.
like old dusty biker rock or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it was a little spooky and a little slow and drolly.
Right. It was like doom rock. It wasn't
Yeah.
even metal. It was like doom rock.
Yeah, yeah, and I couldn't. Yeah, I didn't really get it at first.
No.
But I had to backtrack on it.
Right.
When I backtracked, it was fine.
But then when you were saying that you were kind of getting into it there for like that week or two, like I was kind of like, I was kind of like, oh, okay, maybe there's something to it because I'm just dumb and susceptible to peer pressure that way. And then I started looking at it and sort of getting into it, and I definitely got into the first like 2 or 3, 4 albums, and a lot of that jammy jam stuff, the Symptoms of the Universe and
Well,
A
there
Hole
were
in the
so
Sky.
many levels of Black Sabbath that at the time you go, like I remember having the Dio Mob Rules one, but I was
Right.
like I didn't compute that it was the same band with Ozzy. You know what I mean? I just heard, oh, I got Black, and then all of a sudden I got this Born Again one with the guy from Deep Purple singing, and then I'm like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
what's going on with all these levels of Sabbath here? And there's so many things to pick and choose and cherry pick out of. I was like, wait a minute, and every every avenue they took was kind of different. So you go, all right, I get what they're going for. I get what
Yeah, and it was definitely like they were a thing, and you knew that they were out there. And once again, MTV, which was my main, injection right into my bloodstream. When it first started, they didn't have a lot of videos, so they went back to the old '60s stuff. So they played Hendrix a lot, and they played the Black Sabbath ones of Iron Man and Paranoid, which were shot in some sort of TV studio in England.
Oh, it was like cable access. It was zooming in and out and all
Yep.
flashing.
Yeah, where they had
weird.
the psychpsychedelic
Yeah.
backgrounds. Whatever the hell
That
they were
was that
doing.
old stoner bullshit. That
Right.
was kind of like,
Right, but that's like, because when MTV started, they weren't even running ads.
No.
Like it was just like 24 hours a day running videos, and there weren't that many videos. So they ran like the same
you'd
handful.
Sit there for 3 hours and see it all. You'd see, yeah.
All
By
over.
the time you go, oh, I think I already saw this Billy Idol video.
Yeah.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
this Pat Benatar song. I thought we already heard this one.
Yeah, like all of them. So, but I don't know. Yeah, it was all good stuff.
I wish kids today could understand like how huge MTV was, but only how music dictated our lives. Like movies kind of did, TV really didn't. TV was something our parents did.
Well, it was at cable TV. Because when we were really little kids, it was just like over the antenna. And it was just the network.
Yeah.
And it was like,
and occasionally you get, a Western or a space sci-fi thing, whatever, But it didn't dictate our lives. It didn't dictate the way we dressed, the way we talked and acted. Music did it, and such a monumental force that MTV was.
But once again, I mean, for me, the music came in exactly at the same time as the cable TV.
Mm-hmm.
With the MTV and actually, we had cable TV sort of early on. Like, I remember being like 7 or 8 years old, and my dad's like, because we always had those giant TVs that were like the wooden console on the floor.
Sure. And there's a toggle in the back, so you'd switch it one to antenna A, and then B would be the cable slider.
Yeah, for flipping it over and shit.
Yeah.
And the because we had those giant wooden TVs, and I remember my dad coming home and saying we're getting cable, and me and my brother being like, "Does that mean we're getting a newer, better TV?" And he's like, "No, it's just cable." And we're like, "Well, we don't know what that means." But then we got cable, and we saw what it meant, and it meant cartoons on fucking weekdays. Is what it meant. It meant the superstation WTBS in Atlanta. Is what it meant.
Yeah.
And HBO.
I remember having cable early too, but honestly, I was so lazy that I just remember like since we'd have to get up to still change the slider, I didn't have a remote.
Yeah, the
just
box on
watched
top
what
of the
was on.
TV you had to push to change the channels.
Yeah, so if I stayed on PBS and I started watching something, eventually, if I started watching a Doctor Who, eventually I'd be like,
Yeah. Next thing you know, you're watching some classical music performance.
yeah,
Yeah.
live from Britain,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So I mean, I just stayed on it.
But you know what I did, man? So my hack was I went to literally your dad's Radio Shack store at the mall
Oh,
and bought coaxial cable, which
that
was
was
the
the key.
cable TV, was the coaxial cable. So I bought a roll of, actually, I think 2 rolls of like 25-foot coaxial cable or whatever, which is enough to give me a loop to go from the TV over to the chair that I was sitting in,
Oh,
and then back to the TV. So I could have the channel switcher right next to me.
you were you made your own remote without being remote.
Yeah, hardwired remote. Yeah, yeah.
A wired remote. Gee, I should have thought of.
Because this was back in the days when it was they were like the little hard buttons.
Yeah.
And there was like a certain number of them in a row. I forget. And then there was like a rotary switch that was like A channel, B channel, and C channel.
Yeah.
So you could go through each of the buttons again.
Yeah, it would be like a bank.
Yeah, like 1 through 31 A channel, 1 through 31 B channel, 1 through 31 C channel or something. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, I never thought of making my own remote. We just, when we finally got the remote control, not only did it took a week for my brother to throw it at me and break it, it was, it never had good batteries. We were whacking it and, it never worked. So you'd have to do it and get up and manually change it by hand. But I never thought of the hardwired remote. I should have, God, I had it so right in front of my face. It wasn't, yeah.
Well, I also at the time, like, man, we were big with, my parents had the VCRs. So I always had the VCR set up, and there was like this hard plastic remote that had like a record, don't record switch. And it was wired to the VCR with like a 30 foot cable. So so there was a TV tray. So I was in a Lazy Boy TV tray with the cable box, and then I'd have the remote for the recording thing, And I would sit there and be like, when they're like, we'll be right back, don't go anywhere. I would go everywhere.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And
Wow,
then flip
so you
back.
could eat your popcorn and change the channel.
Yeah, I would literally watch like 2 things at the same time. And a lot of times
you do that now.
I know, I do. I get like 2-3 levels deep on stuff.
I know. I've seen you working, editing on the computer with the TV on and an earbud in your ear. It's like, Jesus Christ, you're listening to a podcast, watching a TV show, and editing.
I do.
What are you doing?
I do. Well, there's a lot of distractions. Sometimes I just need to keep my brain occupied. Otherwise, it's sort of like as Sherlock Holmes would describe, a race car that tears itself apart with nothing to focus on.
Sure.
So
speaking of which,
yeah.
Guess what? Did you know? Well, speaking of, when you tear something apart, you gotta build it back together.
Well, yeah. Well, that's the whole trick. Is putting it back together.
The key. I have to do a callback to last show. Remember our segment of you had a little homework there, Mikey. Yeah, you had homework. You were supposed to build something.
Yeah.
All right, let's the unveiling. You might have to come around to this camera here in case if your camera there isn't quite doing the number. It was the theremin kit. I'm
holding it up right here in front of me. What's the matter with you?
I know the theremin kit. I gave him the theremin kit last week. He had homework, and in typical Mikey A fashion, he had it done that night.
A couple nights later.
Oh, was it? Okay. But I knew you got it on quick. I didn't have to harp on you. I didn't have to say,
here it is.
You do this. You did it on your own.
All right, let me see what I can do here.
All right.
Let's see if I can move that memory card. I'm going to try and put this up here.
Are we going to get an audio version? Are we going to hear this, or
yeah,
are they seeing this?
Should be.
This is going to be fun. Wow.
The computer is activating it.
The computer's active, but your hand is influencing it.
Right? So there's this antenna here.
Yeah.
Here, let me see if I can show you. So it's this sort of scenario. So there's two antennas. So the one antenna does pitch. The other one does volume.
So there it is, folks. A theremin in action, live. He built the kit, and there it is. Now, they have larger professional grade ones. I know a guy who plays one in town who has them custom made by different guys, and they're big instruments.
Right.
They could be bigger, but that's a desktop version.
Here, let me try and hold this thing up to the thing. Okay. So essentially, this little kit that you gave me, this is a breadboard. It's kind of like a circuit board, but instead of soldering shit onto it, you just sort of push stuff into it. So it's like push connect. So we got a couple of little integrated circuits here that they put eyes on them so that you can orient them the right way. And on this perf board, all these little columns and shit are numbered up at the top. And there's power banks on the sides. So the power banks hook up to the AA batteries. And then you got like a couple of resistors, some pieces of wire, a couple of little circuit chips. This is the speaker. That's about it.
All right, and all right. Well, there it is. There it is.
There you go.
All right. A little science class action there. I slept right through science class.
So here's my review of it. I had a fucking super fun time putting it together. I super enjoyed putting together these little electronic kits. I do know a little bit about electronics. I taught myself a little bit about electronics.
Of course.
Before I moved out to Arizona, way back in the day, in terms of guitar pedals and guitar wiring and all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, that was super fun. And yeah, it worked out great. I just followed the instructions.
Now that's what show and tell's all about. You did it.
Yeah, good time.
I showed and you told.
Yep.
Show and tell. See, I like that segment. I think, well, this is where we're going to go. Before we wrap it up today, we're going to tell folks this might be our last time in the Mike Anderson living room.
Like we're done with the podcast? Like no more podcast episodes? Like it's over?
Well, we're going to put it onto a breadboard, and then we're going to...
You like the breadboard? You like the breadboard idea, right?
No. Here's what's going to happen.
It's numbered. It's orderly.
Well,
give it up for the breadboard.
All right, breadboard. So, why don't we tell the folks that we're moving out of this... You're going to stay. You're going to live here. But we're going to move the Shlicketty DooCast to a studio.
Yeah, we got a space.
You hear that, folks? We got ourselves a studio.
Yeah. So us being musicians since we were kids, like we always have a rehearsal space.
We like rehearsal spaces.
Gotta have a space where you can make some noise. So we got ourselves a little space so we can record the podcast and set up the gear and have it set up like the way that we like it. Like this is just my living room. Like that's my TV. I watch Game of Thrones on, like whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
Like this is just my living room, which is fine, you know, as by design when we bought the house. But
so the next episode, you're not going to see me sitting in the chair. You'll see the sign. You might see me and Mike sit next to each other. We're going to go with what they call a 3-camera shoot. We're going to try that out, see how it works. But you're not going to see the DVDs back behind me. You're not going to see this nice little tight gray chair I'm sitting on to keep my fanny warm. You're not going to see Mike sitting in the veal chamber down here.
Right. We're
going to be next to each other. You're going to see it. We're going to try it. We're going to see how it goes. Now, of course, we're going to have to work out some lighting bugs and some, the bugs that go with it. I'm sure it'll take probably 3 or 4 episodes before we go, hey, let's turn on the lights and shoot an ep. These first couple in the new studio might be a little, what's the word?
Oh, ye of little faith.
Little hack and slash.
It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, but we'll
But
figure.
we'll be in a studio space, and we got got a little bit of lighting. But the main difference is here I'm shooting on my laptop, and Aaron's getting shot on my mirrorless camera, and we're not facing each other at all. I cannot see Aaron at all right now. I'm just looking at my laptop, seeing myself. That's about it. Aaron's over there behind me. He's looking at a camera. He's barely looking at me.
And I can make all the faces I want, and he has no idea. Now,
yeah, I have no idea.
This might change in person. See, I get goofy with you. See, you guys see it. He sees it in the edit. But, I get
in
all...
the edit. When I
corny.
edit this stuff, I look at it, and I'm like, it's like a whole different world.
Yeah, and I can get all corny and make wacky faces and do all wacky things, which I always do because that's me. But we'll do it in a different format. So,
yeah.
And our dynamic might change, might stay the same. We'll see.
We're moving. We got a space, dedicated space for doing the stuff. So it's like a little clubhouse. It's going to be a little digital video clubhouse. We're going to do our Shlicketty Doo there.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to capture it, bring it home to edit it, post it up. So,
yep.
Now, if you guys want access to the behind the scenes thing, we are going to be setting up a Patreon very soon here. The way to support us, if you get us and you dig what we're doing, go to the Patreon. Sign up, support us.
Yeah.
We're not asking much. Couple of bucks. Couple of bucks a month. It's like nothing.
Well, we got to establish that. We got to get the website. We got a lot of loose ends.
We're going to be doing some building. We're doing building.
I know. So just hang out with us. Be a bloke. Be a neighborhood friend. Hang on out with us. And
don't be a dick. Be cool. Hang out with us. Fucking A.
It is what it is.
Like, what else you got to do?
Yeah.
It's a lot of bullshit. You can fucking hang out with us and fucking be real.
I know. Why watch another makeup tutorial? You know how to do your makeup. Come on
Dude,
over here.
All right, wait a minute.
Well,
wait a minute. What kind of makeup tutorials, dude?
Well, I'm just talking. I don't know if Johnny Fingerbang in Ohio is doing his makeup.
Johnny Fingerbang
watching eye waxing videos, and stop with that. Just hang out at the DooCast. Come on over.
Dude, I've seen around Halloween time some of them fucking makeup kids, and they start doing like the skull painting on their faces.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Actually, they're pretty good. A lot of them are pretty good. That's pretty impressive.
Oh my god, they're so good.
Yeah,
so
I can't bag on them. I want to, but I can't.
No. Oh, they're so good.
I love anything that's done well.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, we're gonna try to do the show and tell segment too. I like show and tell. I'm a big fan of the show and tell. We were gonna start having guests as well. That was another reason why we wanted to do the DooCast. We'll do the DooCast somewhere else. We can start having guests. Imagine that. Imagine some of our goony friends coming on in.
Yeah, ideally, so we're basically, our studio is in a band rehearsal space.
Right. Other bands are there. So you might hear them in the background. Hopefully not.
Yeah. So we're going to see how it goes once we get down there. Every time we've been down there so far, nobody's been there.
Yeah, it's been kind of a dead zone now.
So we'll see how our schedule, when we want to record and like to record, meshes up with who's down there.
Yeah.
There are some people on the far side of the building, and then there's some people on the near side of the building where we're at.
Yeah.
And I think there's only 2 neighbors with us on the near side.
And I know who they are, but they don't know that we're there yet. But once we start making our presence known and we start,
And I hear that one of them is basically just storing gear there, and the other one is doing like a recording project. So he's only there when he's...
I know a recording product guy. I know exactly who that is.
Okay.
You'll like him. He'll be a good guest too. You'll like that fella.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, look, back in the day, like you guys had a rehearsal studio, and then you got me into that rehearsal studio, and I was in that rehearsal studio for like 8-10 years, whatever the hell it was.
A lot of time.
Yeah. And there was a time in that rehearsal studio, there were 10 bands in there.
Yep.
And I remember there were times we were hanging out there. We would just throw the door open, be like, hey, we're smoking over here. You want to come over? And like fucking just people would just come over.
It was like
we would hang out. And I mean, it was like every like 18 to 22 months, there would be like a shift up, and the drummer from here would go to there, and that guy would go to there.
But what was cool about it, they're all different genres of bands, but for some
Sort of.
reason, nobody brought their girlfriend, so it would always be like just musicians.
I don't remember ever seeing a girl in that building.
No. But it was all, so it wasn't like extra like a party. It was just more like musicians in their element.
Yeah, and it wasn't like it was like a harsh deal or anything. It was just we were all there like rehearsing. Like I remember there were nights that there were 10 bands in the building making noise.
Yes.
And the noise level was not like it was crazy, but it was very cacophonous. There were 10 bands playing at the same time. Not like anybody was crushingly loud or anything.
Yeah, but there was commotion. There's definitely,
definitely
who knows,
commotion.
This new place we got, I don't know if there's going to be commotion. We're going to, you know, we film these
Right.
generally midweek here, so who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows what's going to happen on a Tuesday or
Ideally, I would prefer a Friday night scenario, but sometimes you do some work on Friday nights.
Yeah, I got gigs sometimes, and, you know, so I like this midweek.
And, you know, ideally, if we can, you know, if we're doing gigs, you know, and if I can go with you and like film some footage and like bring it back and show the people,
Hey,
you know,
why not?
you know, just to include the people. And definitely for the Patreon folks, if the Patreon folks want to join, like I can film the entire journey and show you guys.
Or
like,
just some behind the scenes stuff would be fun.
that's what I'm talking about. Well, yeah, I don't mean minute by minute. I mean, you know, if it's
they
a
don't need to
90-minute
see
drive,
one of
you
my
don't need to see every
gigs,
90 minutes.
But to see the yeah.
Yeah.
The interplay between the people backstage and stuff like that is
Yeah.
always fun.
Yeah, I'll
Comedy
go.
gigs are cool.
I'll
They're
shoot
like
some
rock
footage and
gigs.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be fun. We got a whole journey to go on. We got a whole level to
Yeah.
move up. We're gonna move up a level.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of things that can be done. We're just getting started.
Levels, Jerry. Levels, Jerry.
Gold. It's gold, Jerry.
All right. Well, that's it for the DooCast today. We'll make it quick and simple. We'll see you next time on the Shlicketty DooCast.